Sound man. There we go. Okay. All right. I have one illustration to get us started in this second little portion of, are y'all learning anything? Or is it stirring up things you already knew and you just kind of forgot to do? It's always good. It's always good to stir up some of those things that we know to do, but we just don't, or we've forgotten and quit doing it. So it's good to us. It's good for us to get this stirred up. Um, One illustration that I use a lot if I do pre-marriage counseling is the illustration of a marriage is like a house. Now here in Texas, we know all about houses that are built on pilings or what do we call them here? Piers. Yeah. So you've all seen houses built on a pier, on piers. Okay. If you had a small cabin house or a small house like my grandparents had, and down here we would put it on piers, which you'd have to have at least four, one for each corner and one for the middle, right? Well, that's kind of the way a marriage is. It has to have things that hold it level and hold it in place. Now, if you pull out one of those piers, what's going to happen to the house eventually? Maybe not right away, but what is going to happen? It's going to begin to shift, and you're going to begin to see cracks in the wall, which indicates something's wrong. Doors don't close properly anymore. Windows don't close properly. All of that is an indicator that something is out of balance. That's the way it is in a marriage. And in a marriage, I like to look at it this way. The four corners that make up the whole, standing ability for a marriage is, first of all, communication, money, sex, and family. So what's going to make up that center one? Let's put God there. All right. So those are the five things basically that will make a marriage strong. If you pull out one of those and it's weak and it's no longer effective, it will eventually have an effect on the marriage. For instance, if you pull out communication, what happens? Nobody's talking. Or we learn to communicate to the level to where we get what we want. Yeah, manipulation or pouting, throwing fits. Any adults don't answer that. Thank you, Seth, for being so honest. I'm not sure which one he acknowledged was his problem, but we'll leave it at that. But in communication, we communicate to the level we get to where we get what we want. Look at your 2-year-old. Yeah. They're 6 months old and they know how to get what they want. What does a 6-month-old baby do? Cry until it gets what it wants, whether it be something it needs or whether it be something it just wants. They know how to throw a fit, and we didn't even have to teach them how to do that. Well, in marriage, a lot of us have still doing those baby sort of things. We pout. We throw a fit silently. I used to tell Joel, I heard about this husband one time that instead of arguing, he would just pull away and shut down. And I used to say to that man, I used to say, your silence is deafening. It's like, okay, we all know Dad is mad. Talk to me. What is it that I did? I missed it somewhere, Now, when on the other women get upset, you never have to think twice about what it is I'm upset about or that I am upset, because I'm very, very vocal about it. Okay. And so that's why I tell people, if you think you've hurt my feelings, no. When you do, you'll know it. Okay. But until that time, no, everything's cool. So communication is a big deal. Also, too, one of the highest compliments in a marriage is when a husband will confide in his wife about secret things of his past or his childhood or hurtful things that happened or just all kinds of things that brought baggage into the marriage. When a husband will begin to communicate those things, there's hope for that marriage and there's hope for that communication. Women, I don't use women there necessarily because women usually, you get us feeling safe and secure and we'll just tell all. We have no problem. I find that for us, the best thing in the whole world is a road trip because I have his undivided attention. That and the road. But so it's good to take a road trip. Just go out, drive around. because you'll be surprised at what kind of conversation can be brought up during that time without kids. Okay, so communication is one of those areas. Another area is money. If you don't talk about money before you got married, you're going to learn the hard way. Okay, because usually there's one that is a saver and one that is a spender. If you got two spenders, you're in trouble. If you got two savers, you're going to have a very boring life. Okay, so you really need the both, but you need to be able to communicate. Who is the smartest one in the two of you? Not the smartest one, but who's the smartest one to do the finances? The one who actually can balance a checkbook. Just hit on it. No, just kidding. No. That was good.
Is it on?
It's not. It died. Okay, we'll blame it on the. We'll blame it on the mic system. Oh, now you have to stand real close. I can hear his heartbeat. Isn't that cute? Okay, so the one who actually can balance a checkbook is the good one to be doing that, and the one who is more cautious with spending. Okay, but you can't be miserly. You got to listen to the other one. So I want to buy this stupid car. I mean, that car. We don't need that car, but I want to buy it. Okay, then that's when you need to sit down and look at it and say, is this realistic for where we're at financially? Okay, and so money can be a real problem. One thing, too, that I find with marriages is that if one of them is a tithe payer and the other one isn't, you're in for a rocky road, too. Because what is one of the promises for tithe payers? Blessing. The windows of heaven will be open to you. Okay, so it's good that you talk about those kind of things first. And then the other one was, thank you. And then one of those other corners was extended family. Family. Now, with today's group of people, you have a lot of blended families. When you have two families that are coming together, you cannot let one side or the other of the stepchildren or the new children to the family, you can't let them manipulate and control what's going on. The first thing is you have an obligation to each other as a couple. And remind yourself this, those kids are only going to be around till they're 18 years old. Oh, no, today, 25, because we haven't taught them right. So they're needy till they're 25 today, okay? Yeah, or older. Yeah. We won't even go there. Come to the parenting class and we'll talk about that kind of problem. But so when kids realize they're only going to be here for a short amount of time, your marriage is supposed to last forever.
Yeah.
So you better be building your marriage and then realize the kids are a blessing from that marriage. Okay. And so they cannot control the situation and they cannot separate and divide unless you let them. Okay. Also, too, got to go carefully here. When we first got married, we lived way too close to somebody's family. So much so that I used to say, I can't even buy toilet paper unless your father tells me what kind I can get. And that was a situation because we lived on this big acreage and they had a particular system, septic system. And so his father did have this little lecture with me about what kind of toilet paper I could or could not buy on their property. So anyhow, at 4 years, I'd had enough of his family. And it was coming down to a showdown. It's either them or me. Yeah. I am not going to be lectured by your family one more time for anything. And so we did. We made the choice to leave.
Yeah.
And that was the smartest thing we could do.
Yeah.
So, but not everybody has that advantage to be able to pull away. If it's your mom or dad that is putting undue pressure on your relationship, then it's up to you to tell them to stop. It was not for me to tell his family to stop. That had to be him who said, yeah. Mom, Dad, back off.
Yeah.
Leave us alone and let us be us. Okay? My family, they didn't manipulate in that way. We had other problems with my family. We just didn't live close, so that was easier.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. But can you see where And when my family did call, though, I would usually hang up the phone crying, and Joel would go, "Now what did your stupid family do?"
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was kind of our end of it. But anyhow, family can either bring undue pressure to a relationship
Yeah.
and destroy it if you don't stop it. And that even means your own children. Don't let them manipulate you or your time alone. Your kids need to understand that, yes, Tuesday night is mom and dad's date night. We're going out and you're going to a babysitter, period, blank. Get over it. Yeah, because you need time away from us, and we need time away from you. And your children need to know that. And if your children are not comfortable with a babysitter, shame on you, mom and dad.
Yep.
Because you need that time alone. And they need a variety of other people to speak into their lives. They need a variety of other adults that take leadership for a little bit of time over their lives. Yes. Yes, I told you. You win a prize today. I will babysit for your kids or your dog. Not both at the same time. Okay. And then the other one, the other area that is a big deal, because we go into this area, it's called sex or the bedroom or intimacy or whatever makes you comfortable. Okay? But we go into it with such wrong beliefs and understandings, and that's the one area where we bring lots of baggage from our childhood.
It's true.
You have watched, growing up, you have watched good relationships between mom and dad, bad relationships between mom and dad when it comes to the bedroom, or you have watched multiple people come through your home. And so with all of those things that happened in the home you were raised in, you came away from that home with some certain attitudes and ideas about sex and about intimacy. And that is the devil who would like to rob and destroy.
Yeah.
And if you had sex with any other partner before you got married, there's something that we don't tell our kids young enough or often enough or stern enough. Anytime you give yourself in that way to somebody else, you gave them a portion of you that you'll never get back.
Yeah.
You also gave them a portion in your mind that will never be erased.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a serious deal.
It is.
And when you've been promiscuous and you had lots of things like that, it's like that heart of yours, that one piece of the puzzle that was left for the mate of your life, the husband, the wife, when that's been taken out of there and torn to shreds and shared with all kinds of other people, that void is going to be hard to fill then by one person.
Yeah.
Also, too, men, and I say men, not that women can't be a problem with this too, but men, pornography will destroy your home.
Oh, yeah.
First of all, women cannot compete with a fantasy. Your wife will never be able to compete with what you see on that. First of all, that isn't even real.
No.
And second of all, there are no people out there that actually, that's just not, it's not life.
No.
We met a lady who came and spoke at our women's meeting in St. Louis, and she was from Washington State, and she was Mrs. America. She had won this competition of women who are, like 30 and above. And after she won this, she had a centerfold picture in some leading magazine of that type. And after she saw the magazine come out, she was now this was before she was a Christian. She was so depressed. She didn't leave her house for months.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because when she saw that centerfold, she knew that that wasn't her even in reality. They had done so many little tricks with the camera, so many little different positions, different touch-ups to get the very best picture they could. And that's the picture out there that men are looking at saying, that's the kind of wife I want. She looked at herself and said, I don't want people to compare me to my picture. Because when they see me in reality, they're going to go, oh. Because she couldn't even compete with what they'd done with her. So if that's the reality that men are enticed by, talk about great big fools.
Yeah.
And then wives feel inadequate and insecure thinking I can never. And it's like any addiction. How many people start out just smoking cigarettes and stay there forever? No, most of the time they dabble with other things. You start doing drugs and they make you feel good for a little bit, or they calm you or whatever. Well, then one is not enough. You have to keep adding to it. You have to keep adding to it. You have to get something stronger, something different, always changing it. It's the same way with sex. When you open up that gate, pretty soon that won't be enough just to satisfy you. Not only that, but it brings a spirit into the home.
It does.
It brings a spirit into that home. I have seen so many children in this generation right now that have gone into homosexuality. Not because they saw it in their home, but because they had a father who brought an unclean sexual spirit into that home through pornography. What does the next generation do? They're going to take whatever sin we give them and display it in front of them, and they're going to take it to a new level. You know, look at Eli, the priest. He had a problem disciplining his flesh. He ate. He was a glutton. It also killed him, or at least that's why he broke his neck. But anyhow, his two sons, were undisciplined in their flesh too. But they weren't gluttons. You know what they did?
Lust.
Theirs went to lust, sexual perversions, and stuff like that. Yeah. So when you open that door to your home, your kids may never see you on that site.
Yep.
Your kids may never know where you hid the book, if you're old school, you know, the magazine. They may never see it actually, but it doesn't matter. There's a spirit that kind of stuff brings into the home. Dads, you're going to be held responsible when you stand before God and you have children that went a totally different direction because of what you allowed in that home.
Yeah.
Moms, we got a whole other set of problems. Gossip, exaggerating, wishy-washiness, manipulation. Women are great. Men might have a whole bunch of other problems, but women are the world's best at manipulating and control freaks. What do you think that's going to do to your kids? Time will tell.
Yeah.
Time will tell. And you'll be a miserable person when you see how your kids have turned out. Anyhow, and then that center post, you thought I forgot where I was at. Then that center post, that's the one that God better be in the center of all those. If God's in the center, you can be working on this pillar over here, and it won't collapse until you get it done, get it fixed. But if you don't have God in the center, take God out, and then see what happens when one of those other corners begins to deteriorate. You don't have any hope. You don't have any hope of that existing or lasting. And then sometimes we wait until they get to be so bad. You ever had a house that you had to fix and you should have started fixing it way back when? And now that rotted out window has become a major ordeal because you didn't fix the roof leak right there? That's the way some marriages come to God, is in such desperate need of repair. It can still be repaired. It's just going to be a long, painful ordeal. Let's fix it now while it's just a little problem. If you got some issues, take it to God. And while you're working on it, He'll make sure your whole house doesn't fall apart. All right.
I remember a family that we had worked with where the dad was given to pornography. He was in heavy equipment and worked in a lot of big money, away from the home a lot. He got into pornography and had his collection of Playboy and stuff. And I had visited their house one time and talked with him, and he said, you know, Pastor, he said, I gave my heart to Christ when I was a boy, but he said, I really just grew away. And I said, I've been in construction all these years in heavy equipment. He said, ain't nobody saved out there. He said, I'll tell you that. And he said, anyway, he came to the Lord. He got saved. And it was some years after that I dealt with his kids, because his boy had found his dad's pornographic magazines in the garage, and the dad didn't know he even had them yet. And the boy was underage considerably. He was 9 or 10 years old when he found them. And they'd been looking at him for years. And then he started experimenting with his sister. And the dad never thought it was a problem. And that was Eli. 1 Samuel chapter 3. And the first time I read that story, and he didn't understand Hannah and her barrenness and her crying and praying. Seth was just sharing with me a story. And Eli was irritated at Hannah. It happens. God was moving in her, and it didn't fit with him, and he got irritated. And he didn't let her irritation, the irritation that he got from her, he didn't let himself ask the question, where am I with God? He just accused her and found fault. His sons, that iniquity grew in them. They not only had a lust, it wasn't for food as far as overeating. It was, I want the best. And they picked out the best portions of the sacrifices. And then it was the abuse of women. It went on. God asked a couple questions in the Old Testament. And it was very simple questions. He said, when Adam and Eve sinned and he came in the garden and Adam was not there. See, when you don't show up to meet with God, the next thing's going to happen. God is right there, just that next second. Where are you? And you hear it. It's in your spirit. You see that question. You hear the question. God said, Adam, where are you? God knew where he was at. It was not a geographic question. It was a relational question. Where are you with me? Where are you with my word? And he said, did you eat? Did you take of the forbidden fruit? The next question is, where is your brother? Men who don't know where they're at with God deny their sin. They will not take responsibility. They want to avoid it. And then they don't know where their brother's at either. Because if I don't know where I'm at with God, I certainly don't know where you're at, how I could be a benefit, how I could be help. But if I know where I'm at with God, my concern is, where is my brother? How are you doing? Why? Because eternal values are a big deal. So there was a couple things that Rose brought up that I thought was so good that I wanted to get onto, because we deal with these things in everyday life. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, when Paul is talking about divorce and remarriage. And when he says, when people get remarried, he said, I'm not against that. He said, I'm not altogether for it. He says, but when you get remarried, you're not sin, but you're going to have trouble in the flesh. What does that mean? Just what she alluded to. Many times it's families, that his kids, my kids, our kids, and sometimes they're young, sometimes they're older, and it is not always a unity that is appreciated. And sometimes there's fighting and bickering. And I've seen it all my life. You got to go back to the simple Bible principles, and this is what makes it hard. You're going to hurt somebody. And you're either going to trust God, or you're going to please God or please flesh. Is that right? You're going to please God or please flesh. So a couple times in the New Testament, he says, learn what it is to please the Lord. If you desire to please God, please somebody else. Here's what you do. Genesis, the end of the 2nd chapter. Adam, leave your father and mother. He didn't even have a father or mother. There was no father and mother around. It was just God. It was the principle, and God stated it so Adam and Eve would understand what their sons and daughters were going to go through. He said, Adam, leave your father and mother and cleave to your wife. Here's the words, leave and cleave. It's a killer. It's a killer. You're going to hurt somebody. Leave your father and mother. Dad, Mom, I love you, but we're going. When we moved away from Iowa, my dad and Mom had a cow because he wanted me to take over the campground of the church, 40 acres. And he was after us for the next many, many, many years. I said, no, it belongs to my sister and her husband. They're the ones that have been faithful. They worked here. You need to pass it on to them. They have the mantle. It's the Lord. Anyway, when you leave your father and mother, you're making a choice. But it's not just your father and mother. It's the relationships that are previous to your wife. Now we get into the trouble of 1 Corinthians 7. Because when you've been married before, chances are you're going to have children, sometimes grandchildren. Let's just say children. So when you get remarried and you have children by another woman or a couple other women or a couple other men, one of the last seminars I did for women, I had one young lady in there who had 7 children, and all of them had different fathers, and she was not married but was living with another man. Can you imagine the torment all of those kids have? And that's why, dads, you have to know what he told Adam. Where are you? You have to understand your relationship with God, and you have to be able to articulate it. You have to know who you are. You have to know what is important. You have to know that you can speak lovingly, but it may hurt. Not easy. Not easy. So Adam and Eve, your second marriage, third marriage, fourth marriage, leave and cleave. So you have children by your first or second wife, and now you're getting remarried. Who is the top priority? That is jockeying for position all around the world. And I'll just tell you, from the scriptural point of view, yes, you have an obligation to children to provide for them. But your command from God is to cleave to your wife. And for the wives to honor their husbands. Big deal. What does that mean in the playbook? Your children by a previous marriage, whether you're male or female, have to understand that your mate is number one. They're going to see that in time, number one. They're going to see it by the time that you spend with them, and that you and your spouse agree what time you will give your children that are from another marriage. If you don't agree on that, who wins? Don't say the kids, the devil wins. Because your marriage, number one, is the pleasure of God and is to image God, his life, and his nature. And if you image God and his nature, the divorce doesn't look good. The disunity doesn't look good. So you have to keep unity. How we keep unity is by going by the scripture. When I told my dad, he said, listen, this place belongs to you and this is the will of God, blah, blah, blah. And he was going on. I said, Dad, my first obligation is to cleave to my wife, to stay in pursuit of her. And I'm going to, as a husband, there are certain needs by God that I'm commanded to do. I'm commanded to love her. I'm commanded in a submissive role that we submit mutually to each other. And there's a role of submission that I give to protect her, provide for her, and meet needs of her life. I'm commanded by God. I'm sorry you don't like that. And I mean, we had it out. And then when I wasn't around, he went and got in a yelling match at her and was blaming her while we were leaving. I was a horrible order. The very people at times that you think won't argue with you, you take a stand for what is right by God, and there's going to be some difficulty at times. It all healed later on, but it was difficult at the moment. The husband and the wife, you have to be number one. I remember looking at our boy when he getting older and our girls, and I said, listen, you're going to leave the home one of these days. But I said, that's my wife. You'll never disrespect her. She's number one. Now, I love you. I'll fight for you. I'll provide for you the best I can. But when you walk out that door and it's your time to go, I don't have another obligation to you, but I do to her. Till the death, I have an obligation. You need to know that's a godly obligation. And I want you to have that commitment to your spouse. And so we teach honor by how, I tell you, remarriages are tough sometimes.
Also, too, as parent, you got to remember that when your kids get to a certain age, your job is to raise them to live without you. Your job is to raise them to be on their own.
Yeah.
So when they leave at 18, the last day of graduation, bye-bye. When they leave, you better let them go, and you better kick them out and make sure that they do become everything they need to be. Stop babying them.
Oh,
Stop bailing them out. Stop providing for them beyond a certain or reasonable amount. When our kids left home and got married, we said, you'll never come back to our home to live without the spouse. So in other words, you're not going to get a divorce and come back here and hang out mom and dad's until, no. And part of that is, would we have helped them? Yes. But part of that was to say, this is it. Get out there and do it. Make that marriage work. If you give them a safety net,
they'll take it.
you blew it.
Yeah. We talked, all of my family members, almost all of them have been divorced. Okay. Okay. All right. You're all right, Art.
Oh, sure. You just made them mad.
Yeah. Yep.
I know it's good to let the children leave at a certain,
Yeah.
certain age, but sometimes you can't do it because of health disability.
Well, certain disabilities, yeah, that's a different story. Yeah.
Like Lance, she'll never be able to live on her own.
No. And that's an understandable. When he married you, he understood that. And so that's a given.
Yeah, he understood that.
He did. Really?
Kicked out, 17, but not coming back. There's not, no chance coming back to the house. Dad said, figure it out.
And you did.
Wow. There's a way. There's a way to separate in families like that. And there's a way that is not healthy. And I have seen young people kicked out of their parents' home, and it's not been healthy, and it's more damaging. But when it's loving and understood, you've been provided for, you've been instructed, this is how you do it, and we set our children up to succeed, not to fail.
And if you want that, you have to come to the teenage parenting class.
I do thank him for,
Yeah.
for that, though. Had he not done it the way that he did, I would not be who I am today.
Yeah. Macy.
My mom always let my brother. And it was always just if you get into doing some drugs or doing something, you know, it's a family tradition. And so by the time that I was 17, I graduated high school, and I was like, I'm out, never coming back. Because because my mom would always like, well, you know, Joshua, I don't know why you want to move that kid, but you know, I'll always be here for you. And I'm like, he's never going to grow up. I'm saying this at like 14 or 15. Not let him grow up. He needs to make mistakes and
Yeah.
stop being an enabler. Yeah.
When you, young people have to fail, and I think it was Tommy and I that mentioned that, and it's good to let them fall and have so-called a bad experience. But if we've taught them from them when they were young, when you fall down, you get up. If they don't get up, what do you tell them? Once you fail, you're no good. No, we learn through failure, and that's a biblical principle. Learning is a little hard at times, but that's what helps us to write memories in our heart. We learn and we do better. There's a couple things that I thought were good. When I think one of the biggest thing is learning the values and the communication. We talked about values a lot growing up with our kids, what we value, what we don't value. We value family. We value devotion time together. We value church family. We couldn't separate church family from regular family. I don't believe you should. I think they're one and the same. We're all different. Some of us are more weird than others, and but we're apart. I mean, my toe doesn't look like my head, and we could use other analogies, but that's enough. We're all different, and we need every part of the body. We need one another. And as unique or weird as you may think you are an absolutely necessary part. And Paul the Apostle wrote in 1 Corinthians 12 to people in the body of Christ that feel they are the weakest, less noble part of the body. He said, upon you we bestow more abundant honor. Because sometimes people who feel the least, they are the most honorable people in the body. I talk about people that work with it, whether it's children's church or nursery and stuff. They're out of services. They don't get to hear preaching. They're in there and they're giving, and they don't get to hear. And to me, what an unbelievable sacrifice. So people like that, we've tried over the years to do extra special things for them. Why? Because they give. And when you find givers, man, you want to bless them. Takers are easy, but givers, man, it's hard to find people that give. When men understand that they got to give because God's holding them accountable as the head of the home to initiate, to be an example. I heard a story, true story. I was at a seminar, and once you get to a certain age, you feel like, I don't need another marriage seminar. I've gone to enough. We can sit and watch Gunsmoke and feel okay. And anyway, but it's always good. You might hear something, but it's the fellowship that I flat love. Anyway, this guy was telling a story about this couple. He said, doctors have proven that women need a physical touch from their husband 8 to 12 times a day because it does something with the oxygen in the blood. It raises the hemoglobin. Number one, they think better. Are you kidding me? You wonder why women are frustrated sometimes? You're not touching them.
And this doesn't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. That doesn't count.
I tried that. It didn't work. Yeah, and he went on to describe it from a doctor and a psychologist's point of view. It's the soft, meaningful touch when they know they have your attention and that they're in your heart. All of a sudden, their oxygen level goes up. Healing, literally, healing begins to take place. I read another article. 65 to 85% of the people in the hospitals today are there because of an over preoccupation with themselves. They're too self-centered. They're not free from themselves. And what we do when we pay attention to one another is we free them from self-centeredness and we let them know you're loved. We're affirming them just like God did when he died on the cross. He said, I'm nuts about you. We come along and affirm them. Anyway, so this guy is sitting, him and his wife sitting in this seminar, and this doctor had said this: women need 8 to 12 meaningful touches a day to raise the hemoglobin in their body. It's healthy, it's good for their brain, their body, and you just got to do it. And this guy had just come off work, and he was jumped into the shower, and then he realized, oh man, the towels are downstairs in the laundry. So he said, hey, he runs downstairs in his birthday suit. His wife's doing dishes, and he said, this is going to be a shocker. I'm going to grab the towel, but I'm going to go hug my wife first. And he goes in the kitchen and he hugs her and he says, I'm holding you, baby, and this is a meaningful touch. And she turns around and her mouth is just hanging open like she's in shock. And he's saying, yeah, got her. And then he turns around. The neighbor lady's at the kitchen table. Wrong time. There's a time to reach out with each other. We are going to fail in the exercise of affirming and coming alongside one another. We're going to stumble. And it takes that grace with one another. I mean, as many times as I have tried to understand Rose, I'm telling you, Lord Jesus, I need the Holy Spirit to bring me the message of interpretation, because men don't get women by and large. I mean, I'm looking at him, we're talking, I'm thinking, where are you at? Well, are you alien? I'm just like, she's talking out here. And I don't get it. Women can carry 5 to 6 conversations on at a time. I'm still back in number 1. I said, what are you doing? She said, Joe, we moved on. I said, huh? No, we're still here. Because if you start a conversation, finish it. They don't care if you finish it. It's a matter of, we talked. Now I can move on. You don't start a conversation with a man until you finish it. When you finish it, then you can move it. That's how we think. We want to fix. So when you express a need or a desire or a question, we're going to fix it. She said, I'm just not feeling good. I said, well, what's wrong, baby? You go to the doctor? No, honey, it's not like that. What is it? Joel, it's okay. Well, it's not okay. I mean, you don't feel good. What's going on? I'm trying to fix you. Don't fix me. Men don't get that. Understanding one another. I was outside. I came home from a wedding, and I had to do another wedding. And my son, my 13-year-old son, who pastors a church in Green Bay, he grew out of that stage. You know that dinosaurs, the Tyrannosaurus Rex, where the brain is in the tail? That's a teenager. That's where so I come home and my car is dirty and I've got to go to, I can't remember if the next one was a funeral or a wedding I had to do. And I thought, well, I'd just rinse off the car, wipe it down real quick. So I took off my suit coat, but I'm in my dress shirt, dress pants, and my tie and stuff. And I'm rinsing off. And I see Ben come around the house and he's got a water balloon. I said, Ben, no. And I turn around, I'm watching. And another minute, I see Ben, I got to go to this wedding or funeral. I'm in my suit. I said, not now. I saw them disappointed. And he walks away. Dumb kid. Washing the car. All of a sudden, splat. He got me, my whole back. I am soaking wet. And I turned around. I'm going to kill him. And he is at the edge of the garage, jumping up and down. He is so excited. And I thought, you're brain dead. You're an idiot. There's nothing going on up there between your ears. I told you. What was the problem? I could have killed him. Now I got to change clothes. I could be late. He has no comprehension of what he put me in. And all he wanted was to play. And I told him, no, not now. Sometimes kids and sometimes our mates are coming from an area and they don't see this. They just see this. You need to be able to relate with grace when you misunderstand each other. Because if you don't give a lot of grace, then you're just going to have hurt feelings. And can I tell you, there's not a time in my life that I understood Rose perfectly or that she understood me. I don't know when that's happened. But what we did do was practice faith in God. This is the one. I may kill her, but this is the one. Not going to divorce. But I may go to jail. We kept going back to the basics of the Word of God. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not to your own understanding or your emotions or your feelings. I'm not going to be led by my feelings. You know, the only animal that I have found in the world that interprets its life by its feelings is a snake. A snake will interpret its environment and its direction and reaction by feeling the vibrations through its body and its tongue. It interprets what's going on. And when you interpret your life by what you feel, you're living on the level of a serpent, a snake. God never wants you. He wants you to enjoy feelings, but don't understand your life or interpret your life by your feelings. You understand and interpret your life. Your word is a lamp unto my feet, is a light unto my path. Deuteronomy 28, your words are my life. You were made in the image of God to live not by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. You got to take time with God so that you're not going to interpret what's going on by your emotions. Does that make sense? So I turned the hose on my son and had fun. That's what I did. Yep. Oh, yeah. I got about 14 areas I could go. let's practice this. First Peter 3:7 says, husbands, honor your wife as the weaker vessel, that your prayers be not hindered. You know what ticks me off? I love God, but why can't I really be upset at Rose and have an attitude with her and maybe jerk her chain where she knows she's crossed a line here? But then he's not going to answer my prayer because of it. I just think that's wrong. But that's how he operates. If I have an attitude towards you and I'm offended towards my spouse, my prayers are not going to be answered until I get it right. Oh, sometimes I want to be mad because I want to get my point across. Oh, the whole thing. We feel so indebted to our flesh and to our feelings. That's the nature of a fallen humanity. Romans chapter 8. When you feel obliged that you've got to live out your feelings, you're indebted to a sinful nature. What does God say about your choices, about your reaction? And I got to go to that. I said, I'm going to love her all right. I'm going to love her with a meaningful touch. She wants 8 to 12. That sounds good to me. But love, I got to love her like Christ. So I got to love her like Christ. Ephesians 5. I have to love her willfully. You choose to love. It's not a ditch. Well, we fell into love. That's a trap. Love is a choice, not a trap. It's not a ditch. You choose to love like Christ. If he's your Lord, then you choose to love. Then you choose to love willfully. You choose to love realistically. She's not the Playboy pinup. She's Rose. She's not Miss January. She's Rose. And now she's not 20. Good Lord, she's none of your business. I can't believe I'm married to a grandma. And she's going to be a great grandma. Holy Moses. Wow. But I'm not wired for anything less. Yeah, 220s don't work. Anyway. You love willfully. Realistically and sacrificially. I can't do that in my flesh. I just can't. By nature, I'm extremely sarcastic, fearful, and argumentative. And I will sulk and pull back. I'm not going to argue. I'm not even going to talk with you. I'll ignore you. I don't even want you. That's my flesh. I have found to walk with God at all, I have to sacrifice Joel Lamb and to love her when I don't feel like it. And when I do that, it absolutely crucifies me. Am I a doormat? No, you're crucified. There's a difference. A doormat you walk on. Crucify you, they just kill you. A whole lot easier. When you come to Christ, you lay down your life. And so now you don't belong to you. 1 Corinthians 6 says your very body and spirit belong to God. And he wants to live his life through you. There's no greater sense of fulfillment in all the world that can come to you other than living the life of God here with his strength. I cannot tell you the joy and the adventure that has come to Joel Lamb because of being married to her and surrendering to God. Because she is crazy. She's adventurous. She's creative. She takes me outside of my boundaries every day. She has new projects. Let's do this. Let's start a school. Let's go overseas. I don't like to fly. I don't like to do that. And I have found myself building relationships and having experiences I never thought of because she's pushed me. Opposites attract. And when you embrace that oppositeness in your mate, God just enlarges your world and crucifies your flesh, and proves you're submitting to him, you're drawing from him while you're loving and agreeing with your spouse. Does that make sense? Some of those things I hate, but it is so good. When he said in 1 Peter 3:7 to honor your spouse, it really means to treat them like, wow. Sometimes that wow is not a positive comment. Sometimes it's, wow, how could you be so? But if you choose, like God, to pick up an attitude that they do not deserve always. Like when Adam named his wife Eve, mother of all living, she just introduced death. They got kicked out of the garden, and now he calls you're the mother of all living. No, she was the mother of all death. But he called her according to her design, not her behavior. And that's what men and women are called to do with each other. Does that make sense? Okay. I lost my point. Anybody know where I was going with that? Help me out, Kyle. Talk to me. Any questions, comments you want to make? Or we'll close it up. No. Well, maybe not. On my point. Yeah. Well, there's a couple things here. In that 1 Peter 3:7, listen up. The honoring is mutual. It's not just to the husbands. It's picking up, it's a repeat of the first 6 verses. That you honor your spouse, you treat them like a gem. So the first command to women was to reverence her husband in Ephesians chapter 5. So how do you reverence your husband? Now Peter picks up on that and says, honor your spouse to the men and the women. But Paul said, reverence your husband. If this is the first command from God to the woman, reverence your husband. The problem is, what is there to revere if he's not full of the Holy Spirit, walking on water like Jesus? It's faith. That's how you got saved. That's how you walk with God, is by faith. God gave you a gift of his love and sacrifice, and he wants you to give it. Well, they don't deserve it. No kidding. Wow. But you did. Yeah. None of us deserve what we get from God. But that's why by faith, we give what we don't deserve and what they don't deserve. So by faith, I draw upon his radical expression of his gift of love, and I love when they're not worthy. And so Adam named his wife Eve when she was not worthy of it. And we reverence one another when you're not worthy of it. So how does a woman reverence her husband, as Paul said? How do you reverence your husband?
Not like in your, you don't have to be Lord. Like the position that God gave him in the household and over you and his children.
Yeah, there's a horrible position that's outdated, and we probably shouldn't do it anymore. But biblically, when man was made first, there's an order of creation that has never been reversed. It doesn't mean we're not equal. We are equal in God, but we are not equal in responsibilities or roles. There's a difference. There's a difference. Men is the husband as the head, so we are to initiate. It does not mean that we don't have equal authority. We do have equal authority, but we are first accountable among equals, and God holds a man responsible. I think husbands and wives need to agree on the pattern, the type, the values, and whatever's going on in the home, you need to agree. And because if a man is dominating, you're not following the loving leadership of Christ, right? Christ glorifies us with his glory. He brings out the best in us. And so that's what loving leadership does. We bring out the best in one another. And we can bring out the worst, but you got to bring out the best. So to reverence them, honor him as the head. the buck stops with you. And you're going to be first accountable for what goes on our home, husband. How you treat me, how you treat the kids, how you communicate, you're setting the pattern. Is that how you want me to communicate to you? Okay, I just follow you. No, we're going to follow God, but there's a natural pattern that's not going to be violated. Man sets the order, and I'm telling you, it's going to go around. It's going to go around. The kids are going to pick it up, and boys will treat like you treated your wife and their mother. It'll happen.
Let me say something about women.
I'd like to hear this.
I can address this better than he can, because he's kind of beat up on you men. I'm sorry. I'm going to tell you men all something that you probably didn't know about your wife. Women are the world's best manipulators, connivers, backstabbers. I mean, we are. And part of that is because we don't understand who we are in God. I am not the neck that turns the head. Ever heard that stupid analogy? Isn't that dumb? Person who said that didn't have a clue. Okay, that is not my job, but that's kind of what we women have been taught, is that if I do a good job manipulating him, he'll be exactly what I need for a husband. No, all you're going to do is annihilate him. He's not going to want anything to do with us if we become manipulators. Try to set him up. Now there's a difference. I say that I'm a manipulator, but I'm a real honest manipulator. Here in the church even, I don't manipulate you. I just flat tell you what I want you to do. Okay? Same way with in our home. When you manipulate, then you're going to teach girls how to be manipulators. And when you are a manipulator, it means that you are a control freak. It means that you have to be in control of everything. Even if it's not out front, from behind the scenes, you're going to control everything. You're going to be the person it's hard for you to let go of your kids because they'll never do as good job, in their life as they will if you're there to help them. No. But if you've really done your job, then send them on their way. But women, for some reason, we've got this idea that we are a lesser human being, so we really don't have the right to be leaders. So we manipulate. It's wrong. I am a strong leader, but I have to know my place. I don't take authority away from him that God gave him. I just take the authority that God gave me. Most husbands say, I want the Proverbs 31 wife. No, you don't. No, you really don't want the Proverbs 31 wife, because most of you would be so intimidated and scared to death if you had the Proverbs 31 wife. If you think about it, she was the woman who could do everything. I mean, she could take care of the whole household, the kids. She had the servants doing what they were supposed to be doing. She bought and sold land. She had her own business. She had all these things she was juggling, and she didn't drop any of it. How scary is that for a husband? So you really don't want a Proverbs 31 wife unless you're ready for one. But see, God gave us all of those abilities and talents and rights and privileges. We don't have to fight for it, ladies. We don't have to manipulate to get it. We just have to walk mature enough to handle it. And then we won't be a threat to our husbands or to other people around. And I'm afraid that we are so setting this generation of young ladies up for failure because we have taught them some things that are very, very wrong because they've watched us. I don't know about you, but it's almost impossible for two women to share the same kitchen. Why? Because we all have our own way of doing it. Yeah. Well, then we teach our daughters our way of doing it. And then when they don't do it our way, we are frustrated, upset, and mad at them. There you go. It all has to be done our way. Talk about selfish people. A lot of moms have children. Why? Because we need somebody to love us unconditionally. Isn't that the wrong reason to have children? But that's kind of what we do. That's why it's hard to stop nursing them. That's why it's hard to stop mothering them or hovering with them. That's why it's hard to stop manipulating these teenage kids or these young adult kids who are married. It's because they're all created so they can make me feel good. They have to do good so that I can feel good about me. Women, we got to change some of the things we do. And the biggest thing is we got to stop manipulating people, situations, and things. And part of that is because we don't trust God.
That's it.
We don't really think he can be in control either. Isn't that kind of scary?
Many men have never learned the art in communication to listen. Most communication that is different from them coming from their wives, we find it much conflict, like an attack against us, and we're fighting for adequacy and respect. Those are big issues, but we would gain adequacy and respect if we would learn to listen and just sometimes say, I don't know, let me go pray and study and talk to me some more about it, etc. If you want to get your husband's attention, don't criticize him, but have some empathy, show some concern as far as showing him you're important. I really value your information and value what you say. Understanding if they're tired, worn out, give a little empathy there. I think it's a big deal, and having genuine concern for each other. To ask their opinion, babe, what do you think about this? I think those are good conversations. Keep it short and to the point. Don't speak for an hour and expect him to respond. He lost sight of after the first 3 sentences, he was gone. If you can't summarize your whole argument or concern in 2 sentences, don't talk to him.
Until you can. Yeah.
Is that right, Walter? Yeah.
Something else that happens with women is that when the Bible says that we're to reverence our husband, I have seen this so many, many times, and it just grieves the Holy Spirit inside of me. I see women who criticize their husbands publicly, and they don't see it as humiliation. But if you want to turn him off totally from conversation or a loving relationship, go ahead and criticize him in front of other people.
Right.
And yeah, maybe he is a jerk, but you don't tell everybody you come across what a big jerk he is. You don't even tell his friends what a big jerk he is. You don't do that, because then you are so wrong with what God says. Does that mean we lie about it? No, it just means we shut up and don't say anything. But you never disrespect a husband and then expect him to feel good about loving you. It's not going to happen. Don't criticize in public. Something else too that we see a lot of couples do is that their conversation and the way they address each other and talk to each other in public is so demeaning and so bad. We had a friend who, bless his heart, he's gone on to be with Jesus, but he used to call his wife the old hide.
He did.
Yeah, he did. And she just didn't even care. Can you tell, anybody want to guess how great their relationship was? It wasn't. It wasn't. They just lived in the same house because it was cheaper than living separately. And then they had all these kids. But he called her the old hide for as long as we knew him. And I used to say to Joel, don't you ever. One time you call me the old hide, I am out of here. This old hide is gone.
Yeah.
Yeah. But and it doesn't have to be the old hide. You can find ways of disrespecting them just by the way how you talk to them. I try really hard never to get into an argument or a disagreement in front of other people with Joel. Not because I don't want them to see that I can argue, but it's because I don't want to, in that argument, tear him down in front of anyone. Because that is exactly what the Bible tells me not to do as a wife, is that I am not to tear him down. I am to reverence and respect him. It doesn't mean he's perfect, but it means I reverence that position. Anybody ever got pulled over by a policeman in our little town? I hear lots of people are in our little town all of a sudden. But anyhow, ever got pulled over by a policeman? He may be younger than you, like the ones we have now are little snot-nosed little kids compared to me, but when a policeman pulls you over, do you want to give him a piece of your mind? Yeah, you'd like to, But why do you not do that? Maybe he is a jerk. Maybe that little policeman at home is a wife abuser. Maybe that little policeman is, stealing from the precinct or whatever. We don't know what kind of character he is. So why do I have to submit to him and say, yes, sir, no, sir, I'm sorry, sir? We honor his position. You ever seen a policeman standing in the middle of the road stopping traffic? My 5,000-pound car could run over him. What do you mean I have to stop because he does this? I don't stop because, I'm afraid of him. I stop because of that badge that he
Position,
has,
yeah.
says he has a position.
Yeah.
And so we honor position. And wives, sometimes we just have to honor and respect the position of a husband. And in doing that, we're giving him room to become that very thing that we
Yeah.
want in a husband and that God calls him to do. And you know what? You're never going to badger your husband into coming to church or being a Christian or reading his Bible or getting a prayer life. You're never going to, and you can try to manipulate them all you want to. You can flaunt your little Bible study in front of them all you want to. You can just be the little self-righteous wife.
Yeah.
Did I go too far there?
You close, but
Okay.
it's good.
All right. You can just be that wife who just, just shows your little self-righteousness like, I am so good at this. And if you were a better husband, you'd be reading too. You'd be studying too. You'd be reading your Bible. You'd be praying more. That's not going to win him at all.
No.
How are you going to win him if he's not a believer or not following Jesus the way he should? How are you going to lead him? Just being the best wife you can be. We had a friend of ours in northern Iowa. This little woman, her husband never darkened the door of the church. He wanted nothing to do with church, nothing to do with church folks. But you know what? She came to church every Sunday morning. This is in the old days when you had Sunday night church. Sunday night and Wednesday. And up until her boys were in their, late teens, she made them go to church with her.
Yeah.
And so every time they'd pack up and go to church. And then she missed a few Wednesday nights. And we thought, Well, we found out that what was happening was he was demanding her to stay home on Wednesday nights because on Wednesday nights, he was tired of having leftovers because she wasn't there to cook. Or she would have to cook something real fast and then run out to go to church. And so he was getting a real attitude about her church.
Yeah.
So she said, you know what? All right, fine. I'll stay home on Wednesday nights and I'll make sure you have a great meal. So on Wednesday nights, she cooked more than she ever did. She did the best meal. She just made him feel so horrible because instead of having a bad attitude and showing him, okay, fine, you want me home? I'll be home, but you won't be happy. So instead of doing that, though, she just poured kindness. The Bible calls dumping kindness on their head like coals of fire. And you know what? It wasn't but maybe 6 months at the most. She started coming back to church on Wednesday night because he couldn't stand having her home and being nice because it made him feel bad about his demands. It took them a long time. They were probably married, 30 years? And finally, one day, shock to everybody, her sons and her, one day he said, you've been going to that church for a very long time. I need to go over there and see what it is that's really going on in that church. See, he had to save a little bit of pride too. So anyhow, so he came to church with her. He started coming to church with her. And you know what? All those years that she'd been coming to church faithfully with her boys, she never asked him to go to church. She would ask him a few times. She would say, hey, the boys have a Christmas program tonight. You want to go to it? But other than that, she didn't ask him, hey, are you going to church with me Sunday morning? Hey, would you go to church with me Sunday morning? Please go to church. No, she just didn't do it. She just went there, came home with a good attitude, submitted when he said, I'm tired of you going on Wednesday nights. And you know what? Took her 30 years. But that God in her won him over. And after he started going to church, I don't think he's quit. Isn't that awesome? Long, hard road to plow sometimes. But was it worth it? Oh, yeah. And you know what? Her boys are serving God, the last that I know of, So you know what? There was a divided home, and for a little while, the boys struggled on who they would rather go after, mom and her little church world, or dad and his heathen world. You know, they struggled a little bit, but both boys ended up serving God. And when they really look back, they knew it was mom who was the strong one in the family. They knew it was mom who was the one that held out until God answered all of her prayers. Those boys love their mom and have great respect for her.
Somebody had shared with me illustration this morning. Let's close with this. In 1 Corinthians 7, Paul refers to a situation in the Corinthian church where the guy was not saved, but the woman was saved. And he tells the woman to stay in the relationship because through her being a Christian and him not, she has an influence and he may get saved, as well as the children are called sanctified or holy because of the mom staying in the home with them. And in 1 Peter 3, Peter says that in those verses that the unbelieving husband or the unbelieving spouse can be won by the believer. It's interesting to me that when you take a posture of just love and being gracious and you have a joy of the Lord, the influence is more profound than what you know.
It's contagious.
Yeah.
It's contagious.
Yep.
All right. I got a few more
That's
things
it.
to give away.
All right. Give it away.
All right. Let's see. Turn that over and let's see which one.
Hey, Tommy wanted one.
Tommy,
Oh, I'm sorry.
that was
I'm
one
not
that was already
supposed to
drawn.
pick them out, am I? Okay.
Okay. I think this one going to Saltgrass is to Mary. And here I have another one going to Saltgrass. Tony and Jerry. They did not follow directions. They put 2 on 1. But no. And if you're really nice, maybe the 4 of you could make. No, it's a date night. All right. This one is to Texas Roadhouse. Oh, can't do that one. They already won a prize. Dawn gets that one. All right. This one is my favorite. Luigi's is my favorite date night because it's an Italian little restaurant and it has the little atmosphere of an Italian patio. And if you you have to make reservations. But if you make your reservations for 7:00, they're not open on Monday. But if you make your reservation, Tuesday through Sunday, they if you make it at 7:00, they have live entertainment. Usually it's a little 3-piece jazz band or a piano player or guitar. And so it's really, really my favorite. Anyhow, so to Luigi's. Okay. Rashawn. All right. All right. Well, I hope it stirred up some good things in y'all. John. Yes. Thank you for coming.
If you wouldn't have been here, this wouldn't have been any fun at all. And for some of us, I know coffee ran out, and
so
I
that's
needed
really
a cup
why he
about
wants
an
to
hour
quit.
ago. Man,
That's really why he wants to quit. All right. Bless y'all.
Lord bless you good. Thanks a bunch.
Those of you that had kids, go pick them up.